Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us during the Lytham Partners Fall 2025 Investor Conference. My name is Ben Shamsian, Vice President of Lytham Partners. During today's Fireside Chat webcast, we welcome PolyPid, ticker symbol PYPD on the NASDAQ. Joining us today from the company is Dikla Akselbrad, PolyPid's Chief Executive Officer. Also joining us today is Chase Knickerbocker, Senior Research Analyst with Hallum, who I've asked to moderate today's Fireside Chat. Chase covers a wide array of specialty pharmaceutical, biotech, and medical technology companies at Hallum, including PolyPid. Chase brings a unique commercial perspective to his coverage, as he has held several field sales roles at Stryker early on in his career prior to joining Hallum. Before I turn it over to Chase, I just want to remind everyone that management is available for one-on-one meetings throughout the conference and in the upcoming weeks. If you have not already signed up and would like to schedule a meeting with the company, please send me an email at shamsian@lythampartners.com. That's SHAMSIAN at lythampartners.com. And with that, Chase, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ben. Hi, Dikla.
Hi.
Thanks for taking the time. Maybe just to start, for those who are less familiar with PolyPid, maybe just a little bit of background on the company and kind of catching us up to date.
Sure. So PolyPid has developed over a decade a unique platform technology that allows for prolonged delivery, constant linear delivery of drugs, where initially we are focusing on surgical site infection, on prevention of surgical site infection, hoping to bring more product utilizing our platform technology. Our lead product, the D-PLEX 100, which is pairing our PLEX platform with doxycycline for 30 days coverage of the incision, is just recently, a few months ago, has published a positive phase 3 data, pivotal study, and we are now in the process of submitting the product for an NDA application.
And maybe just to start on the pivotal data that you released a couple months ago, can you maybe kind of talk about what you learned in Shield 1, how that kind of informed Shield 2? And then walk us through the data, and we can kind of jump back and forth a little bit there. But obviously, very strong results. Nearly 40% kind of reduction on the composite primary, over 50% reduction in surgical site infections. And so maybe talk through the specifics of the data as well.
Sure. So the study is in prevention of infection in patients undergoing abdominal surgery, specifically open colorectal, where infection rates are quite high. In this type of patient, you would expect to see double-digit infection rate. And this model was chosen for the very obvious reason of being a case where in an elective surgery, there is very high infection rate. I dare to say unacceptable infection rate. And this is how we conducted the study. We started with Shield 1, which was a study that was run through COVID. 100% of the patients of this phase 3 were recruited during the COVID time, which I must admit that the time of the design and the initial running of the study, we didn't give this too much thought into, in the sense that we thought that it's more of an operational challenge. But as times went by and as we started to see the data coming out, and in parallel to that peer-reviewed journal came out, we started to see hospital reporting that there was a reduction in surgical site infection during the COVID time. Again, for all the obvious reason, people were not going to the hospital as much. Hospital had much more robust hygiene processes, and this jeopardized, or I would say, this had an impact on the robustness of the overall data. But within that, we had, with half the patient population in the study, about 500 patients, we had very robust data with patients that were more complex, the ones that are having multiple comorbidities, or the procedure is much more complex. And we went to meet the FDA with that. And the FDA recommended that we repeat this group, saying that if the data is robust, this should be sufficient for an NDA. And this is what we've done. This was exactly 2 years ago. We initiated the study. The study was conducted in patients undergoing open colorectal resection, specifically the more complex patient, the one with the larger incision, with the larger tumor. And as you said, in this data, where the primary endpoint was to show reduction of infection, mortality, and reintervention based on the instruction of the agency, we had almost 40% reduction with very statistical meaningful data, p-value that is lower than 0.005, better than what is needed, reducing the incident of the combination of these events from 18% to 10.9. And also, maybe more important for us is our effect on surgical site infection, where we saw 60% reduction from almost 10%, 9.5 to 3.8%. Again, very robust in terms of statistical meaningful. And what's interesting here, and this is something that we've been hearing from surgeons post publishing the data, now that we have some discussions with surgeons, they have indicated to us two points that I think are important in this data, this 9.5 to 3.8. The one thing that they are saying, we see in our practice higher incident rate than the 9.5. And to that, my answer is this is very this makes perfect sense, because in a study, you do not recruit some of the patients that you have in real life. For example, patient undergoing emergency surgery, or those that are very unstable, because you can't randomize it, because that's the common practice. The other thing that they're saying, you have reduced the infection rate to 3.8, which is better than what we see in the laparoscopy procedure in this patient population. In this type of procedure, we would expect to see 5% infection rate in laparoscopy, colorectal resection, and you've shown 3.8. So this is kind of implying to them, or this is how we interpret their comment, is that these are very robust result, very significant clinical added value. And what we are hearing, that they expect that in real life, it will even have an even better effect, or a broader effect, because of additional patient that will be part of the treatment.
And as we start to think about the product, now finally commercially, right, with the great data, as we're marching toward FDA approval, with the submission in the first quarter of next year, can you just help characterize for investors how much, preventing one infection saves the hospital? And then two, on that front, just kind of how you see the market opportunity in this initial indication for D-PLEX 100 from a overall patient and dollars perspective.
So the cost of SSI per patient on average is $25,000 in the US. So that's the cost, and this is not being reimbursed, because the hospital gets a total DRG, and this is what they get per the patient, whether it's colorectal, for example, with the most complex colorectal resection with different multiple comorbidities, the total DRG will be $40,000. and it could be as minimal as $10,000 in the less complex and the most um, easiest procedures and patient. So when a hospital has on an average a $25,000 expense on this patient, they probably lose money on this patient. So that's one thing that I think is the most important. Obviously, the most important thing is to save life and to help patient, but this is really very easy to measure. The other thing is that our product has breakthrough therapy designation and 3 different qualified infection disease designation, QIDP. And this makes us eligible for the ENTER program, which means that the hospital could get 75%, up to 75% reimbursement on the cost of the drug in the first 2 to 3 years from launch. So these are the first 2 economical driver. In addition to that, as you were asking about the way we look at it, D-PLEX should be in the life cycle management. The thinking is that the product could be expanded to many surgeries and many applications, but the initial application that we are looking at is the abdominal one, which in the US, it is about 4.4 million procedures a year in abdominal surgeries. In Europe, additional 3 million. So we're talking on the initial target market opportunity of 7.4 million operation. Obviously, later on, we expect to see ourselves going into area like open heart surgery, CABG, breast mastectomy and reconstruction, orthopedic. There is many more area where we can help the patient and the hospital.
And if we think about those future indications, millions of more procedures, obviously. I mean, do you have any thought on kind of your path there as far as what kind of studies would be required? Is it going to be, incrementally simpler studies than what we had to run in Shield 2? Or how should investors think about kind of the path forward into other indications as well?
So definitely we believe, and we also see real life evidence in other product that those should be incrementally much smaller than the D-PLEX. It's not a pivotal study. The way we look at it and what we expect to see, we are going to submit the NDA, as you said, early next year, on the first quarter of next year. And we also plan to meet the FDA before the end of this year for a pre-NDA meeting. And the thinking is that around the same time that we submit the NDA, we should be meeting the FDA for a label expansion discussion. This is part of our plans, and we can discuss then with the FDA specifically what the requirements are. But I can give you examples. We've seen products that are in the surgery suite for management of post-surgical pain, for example. And we've seen many products that we can learn from that are under the 505(b)(2) pathway, where the presence of PK data, of safety data, of phase 2 data was everything that was needed in order to support this broader of the label. I think the orthopedic is something that we will need to discuss in more detail with the FDA, but the other parts are something that we feel very strongly that this should be supportive and sufficient.
Got it. Maybe just on the path forward with the FDA towards the NDA submission. I mean, it sounds like everything's on track for an early submission next year. I mean, maybe just talk through any incremental conversations you've had with the agency, incremental things to do as far as what's left to do for the filing and the final package. Yeah.
Sure. So first, We, along the way, have been in quite, and this is also thanks to the breakthrough therapy designation, which allows us to have more frequent communication with the FDA. We've been submitting along the way things that we wanted to pre-agree on with the FDA, whether this is some CMC processes, some validation processes, everything that in our eyes is questionable, we've asked and we are asking. And I think we probably had in the last year or so dozens of back and forth communication with the FDA on things that we wanted to clear and make sure that we are on the right path. And this is also the purpose of the pre-NDA meeting. So we are not leaving things for the NDA. Whatever we can hear from and get to an agreement prior to the NDA, we try to do it. Not everything, obviously, we can, because some things we need to wait for the data. But whatever is finalized, we try to submit it. And I must say that we get more and more confidence based on these response and the type of request that we get. That's one important thing. So we are not leaving things to the end of it. The other thing is that we've been in process of preparing the modules and the package for the last year, even before we got the data. So we've sensed that we are at the final review and final processes of at least the first models that we plan to submit, the CMC and the preclinical. Those are pretty much finalized and are in good shape. The clinical module is in work, and it will be ready as well. Maybe one thing that is also important, being an Israeli company gets us to be inspected by different regulatory authorities prior to the FDA inspection, which is not the case in US-based facilities that are being inspected once they submit the NDA. We've been inspected by the European authorities, by the Israeli Ministry of Health. Just recently, we reported that we passed a commercial inspection, routine commercial inspection. So we are in that state of mind. That said, a lot of work is being done to be prepared. We have a whole team that is dedicated to that. There is a lot of work that is being done to be prepared in the best way possible for the inspection. Because once we submit the NDA, we expect that the FDA will come to inspect the facility shortly after that, in a matter of months.
And so for that inspection from the Israeli Ministry of Health, are their standards fairly similar to that of what the FDA will hold you to? And, kind of speak to the confidence that gives you in that ultimate FDA inspection when it happens during the NDA process.
So it's very much on the same standard, and there is some mutual recognition for the stage of the clinical stage. And it's a very high standard, all done under GMP requirement. I would say on that, and something that I think the team is also telling me, the worst thing that you could do in preparation for inspection is to feel too confident. So. Yes, the answer to your question that the standards are very similar. Those are high standard, and every inspection, every mock inspection that we are doing with external advisor, and every inspection that we're doing, for example, with the Israeli Ministry of Health, is helpful in getting us better. I don't think this is something that we could say, okay, so we're good to go. We need to be prepared for that. A lot of work needs to be done in order to really pass this in the best way possible. And those are the kind of standard that we put to ourselves and to our team. So we hope to
Got it.
be.
Yeah. And you've been fairly clear and kind of open, kind of post data that you're likely to seek a commercial partner in the United States.
Mhm.
Can you kind of speak to how those conversations are going? And then, obviously, as you kind of look to maximize value in those conversations, kind of speak to how you see the overall opportunity from a revenue perspective for Dplex 100 that you're kind of, expecting these potential partners to value for you.
So I must say that I'm very pleased with those discussions, with the level of interest, with the type of companies that are interested in the product. Those are companies that have robust sales force to the hospital. So I see that as a very good fit. And also the kind of interest that they have in the product, how they view the product, how they view the potential to grow this product. Those are very good discussion. Obviously, you can't time those discussion and it takes time, but we are pleased with the way that those discussions are going.
Got it. And to shift gears just a little bit, you guys have recently announced a GLP-1 program that's in, call it early clinical, preclinical stages. Can you just speak to kind of when we could see data from that program, and exactly what you're looking to prove and kind of what profile you're looking to deliver
Yeah.
in that?
So maybe just to say what we see our benefit in this, because this is a very crowded area, and what's the added value that we are bringing to this area. And the two things that we are bringing that are quite unique are our ability to have the drug, the GLP-1 or the amylin or the GIP. We started with GLP-1, but later on, with the right partner, this could be also expanded, is that we allow for zero autokinetic exposure to the drug. There's no spike. All the drugs that are out there today are suffering from an initial spike. People have different PK, different exposure to the drug at the beginning of the week versus the end of the week. We are offering zero autokinetic exposure of the drug. That's one thing, and we expect that this will have an impact on the adverse event and the tolerability of the drug. The other thing is our ability to have it on a much extended time. Today, the drugs that are approved are for weekly injected. We've published that we're looking at 50 to 60 days, and which is obviously much more, the endurance of this could be much better. It's early, as you said. The next step is preclinical data that will show both efficacy as well as PK of the drug. And I expect that this program, once we have this more robust preclinical data, will be subject to some sorts of a collaboration.
And so the thought is not only deliver, a better dosing regimen, but also that there could be some benefit from that more smooth PK profile,
Yes.
on the side effects that plague the class.
Exactly.
And then so do you think that preclinical data, as far as demonstrating that product profile, do you think that's sufficient to then kind of engage with partners? Or do you think you'll need some clinical data before, you generate that interest?
So I think depending on, obviously, on the actual data, I think, and this is not just from me thinking that, but also from discussions that we have with the big player in this area, is that the first thing that I want to see is PK data. From their perspective, if they see PK data, knowing what they know on the drug and the indication, they can extract from that very, very nicely what will be the effect. So that's the first thing that they want to see. We also want to see some actual efficacy data. I think this will also have an impact. And if the data is compelling, I think this should be sufficient. We've seen different deals that were signed, just in a matter of, I think it's 2 months, that Eli Lilly signed a huge deal on a platform, on a delivery capability. So I think this should be sufficient, not because of the actual sufficiency of the data, but because this is based on a phase 3, on a pre-approval drug. This is a pre-approval technology. It's not something that is new. We are utilizing things that we've developed over a decade. So we're bringing a much more stable approach.
Got it. And then maybe just to finish, maybe just a quick lap around the financial position from a cash perspective, and then any other kind of near or medium-term catalysts that we should be watching for the company before the NDA submission in Q1.
Sure. So we have reported that we have sufficient cash into 2026. We are now, this is sufficient, obviously, post submission of the NDA. And in terms of additional milestone, so obviously we will be reporting as we progress on commercial, which is quite important to us. And I would expect to be able to report some publication of the data in different conferences, and probably article will take a little bit longer, but because of the type of magazines that we are hoping to be at.
Great. With that, thank you for your time, Dikla. I'll pass the floor back to Ben.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, Chase and Dikla, thank you very much for your time today. Certainly found this very informative, and I believe our audience found it informative as well. Before we wrap up, a quick reminder, again, anyone who would like to schedule a meeting with PolyPid, please send me an email, Shamsian@lythampartners.com, SHAMSIAN@lythampartners.com. Chase, Dikla, once again, thank you for your time, and we hope everyone enjoys the rest of the conference.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.